Okay, good evening. We're going to go ahead and get started. I want to start off, I'm Commissioner Townsend, I'm sure you all know that. Um, I want to start off by apologizing because I know that a lot of you went to the front of the building. And people, it's amazing to me every time something happens here that they don't realize that the back part, three-story building, is the administration part. So that's something that we need to work more on, because I even see it whenever people come in to submit proposals. You know, they have a hard time finding the purchasing department. So again, another lesson is to something we need to improve around here. So I want to start off by saying that the reason for me having this tonight is at the school, for those of you that have attended the meetings there with me, I had to pay for that facility. And I had to pay the school board, and because it was on school property, I had to pay for a deputy to be there. And they are on a timed system that their AC shuts down at 8 o'clock. And so because of everything that went along with that, it was great when we started off there. I know that this is kind of inconvenienced some of you to be here, but I'm grateful that you took the time out to be here, because this is your building, you pay for it, and it doesn't cost you anything by being here tonight, and the AC will be on as late as we need to be here. And the only people that, and they're not even on overtime because they're salaried employees, is the staff that we have with us tonight. So this is of no cost to the taxpayers to have stuff in this room, and it's your room. So in the future, anytime something is happening up on the north side of the county, I do want to try to utilize the facility to try to save and offset tax dollars and cost. So that was the reason for me to have this here, because I didn't want to go out and spend more of the tax dollars to be able to pay for the school. And then if there was a lot of questions or a lot of turnout, we would have to be out of there by 8 o'clock. I'm hoping we're not here till 8 o'clock. I'm hoping that you're going to get the information you need. I do want to start off, though, by saying tonight, I know that there's been a lot of stuff out there. This is not a vote. You're not here to vote. And this is just conversation like we did with the Fort Pierce Farms Water District. There was a lot of people that didn't know, and they weren't educated because you were new to the community. And so there has been a lot of interest that spurred from the water district meetings. And so I have sat down and spoke to several of you at the HOA meetings. There's been conversation brought up. So I want to bring everybody back to the table, and I want to clarify a lot of things that are being said out there in the community, and I want to state the facts tonight. So I felt that it was in the interest of everybody in Lakewood Park to be able to know the truth, and this will be posted on the county website. We're not live right now, but later on after the meeting, you will be able to follow it through. So if you have information, you can call the office. It can be added. I can answer questions on the site. And if you don't remember something, you can always go back to the St. Lucie County website and pull up my blog, and you'll be able to go back and re-listen to some of the information, because you're probably going to get a lot of information tonight. To plan for that, we do have staff here. I want to go ahead and introduce them to you. They're up here on the dais. We have from the Utilities Department, we have Ray and Val. And from engineering, we have Dawn. And from the MSBU's and grants, and she's a little bit of everything, really. I call on her even. And this is Barbara. So these are the four that, if you decided to proceed and move forward with utilities, these would be the four that would help implement that. Two of the things that happen, one of the things that's being said out there is that you're going to get water. So as a Board of County Commissioners, we can make that decision, and we can say we're going to do it. We're going to put water in. But as a board, that's not what we want to do. And I can tell you as a commissioner, that's not something I would approve and I would even vote for. To me, I would always want to have conversation, and I would want the conversation to come from the residents, and I would want it to be your choice. I mean, this is your property, it's your property rights, and you know, we all have budgets. We're all on fixed income. Some of us have good jobs, some of us have not so good jobs, some of us are unemployed, and so it should be your decision as to what's done. But with that said, the importance of moving this forward is, it's very, very important for you to understand that if there's 3,000 ballots that go out, and 100 of you turn those ballots in, and 52 of you want it, you're all going to get the services. So it's not because you don't turn your ballot in, it's going to vote a yes or a no for you. And so that's a big misconception that a lot of the residents have when we go to start this process to move stuff forward. So it's really important, and you've taken the first step by being here tonight and to get the information, so you're going to go back and you're not going to have it being told, by somebody else and it be wrong. So you're here and you will walk away with the facts, and my goal is for you to hopefully go back and tell your neighbor or somebody else in your neighborhood so that you can say, no, I was there, I heard it. And if you don't believe me, go to the site, you can hear it from the site. So again, I just want to really stress the importance that when Barbara sends out the ballots, you're all going to receive one. And when you receive the ballot, it's very important that you vote yes or you vote no, because it's 51% makes the decision. At that time, though, there's other things that will have to go on. And in that process, you will not be giving a number, because we have no way of knowing what the cost is going to be. So this is just to find out if there is a desire and a need to move forward with utilities. And if there is, we will send out the ballots. We will see what you decide. And at that time, then, it would go into the cost factors and seeing the cost, and then more information would be sent to you for you to see if it's something that you feel you're interested in, because we will have cost factors involved for you to make that decision. There will also be 2 MSBUs. It won't be one, because it's not cost effective to do that. So you would have 1 MSBU done on the water, and you would have 1 MSBU done on the sewer. So you might come back with the ballots and say, we don't want sewer, but the majority wants water. So you're going to get the water, but you would have the MSBU for the water. But 5 years from now, there's a need and a desire. We're back here again discussing this, and you didn't then decide you want utilities. That would be another MSBU to go onto your property. So they will be 2 separate charges to you, and we're going to determine that tonight, and with some more polling and some more balloting and some more meetings. Barbara printed up some stuff when you came in. If you don't have it, there's information up here. It breaks down what an MSBU is. It talks about the boundaries. It talks about fire hydrants. Did everybody get the information? Okay. I just want to make sure so that you can follow along with that. The other thing I want to say is an MSBU can be done anywhere from 10 to 20 years. I will tell you that in conversations I've had with Barbara, and I believe with the board that I sit with today, it would be our goal to take this to a 20-year to be able to have the cost as low as we possibly can for you. Obviously, if we do this and it's a 10-year, it's going to be twice the price, and it's going to be twice the increase on your taxes versus taking it out into a 20-year. So my goal would be to take it to a 20-year so that it can continue to keep the cost as low as possible for you. Again, I'm one commissioner of 5, and it would be discussed, and it would all go through and be voted on at that time. So these are just some of the directions that I can give you from me. I am going to have staff talk about this in a few seconds. Before I do that, though, there were some questions that had come into the office. I just want to address a few of them. And when I'm done and when staff is done, there's a microphone here, and you can come up, you can address your question to anybody that you'd like. Please stay at the microphone, because we are filming this and taping this, and so that it can be seen on TV. Please try to not walk around, but to stay where the microphone is. So one of the questions that was asked was, if a resident's well should fail after the water distribution system is in place, would they be forced to hook up? So would you like to address that issue, Ray? Answer that question?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ray Marinkas. I'm project manager, one of project managers at the Utilities Department. Water wells, individual water wells, and septic drain fields are not permitted through St. Lucie County Board of County Commissioners. They're permitted through the St. Lucie County Health Department. It's been my experience that if a water distribution system is available at the front of the property, the health department does not issue a permit to either rehabilitate the well or to drill a new well. They would require the property owner to connect to the water distribution system.
Okay. Another question that came in is, are there any other ways to fund to make this look more attractive to the people so it will make sense for them to agree? Well, I'm going to answer this question. I'm going to say to you, I don't want to put something out there for it to make sense, to make it more desirable. I think that we need to put out the facts. We need to put out the truth. and we need to be total transparent about this. So I'm not interested in making this look good. I'm making this to be the information that you need so that you can go home and you can think about this and talk about it, and you're going to make an informed decision. I don't want to do something for you to think something's going to be wonderful when it might not be, although it might be wonderful. I am somebody that I will tell you and I will disclose. I do live off the Andrea Road area. I am on septic and I am on well. And this came through in our neighborhood and it was voted down. And as much as I would have loved to have had the services unfortunately were not going to be offered through the county utilities. They were going to be offered through the FPUA because of the section that I'm in, and it was going to be $26,000. That's not something people can afford today. And so for that reason, it was voted down. As much as I wanted to be off my well, it was not something that the people that live on my street that are on retired incomes could have afforded. And so, you know, the demographics of Lakewood Park are different, and you have mixed demographics in there. And so I know that it's going to come down to a lot of the cost factors for you. And so I just want to say for me, and this is just me speaking, I can't speak for anybody else, I'm not interested in putting something out there to make it look good and to sell you something. I'm interested and I'm here to give you the facts. So we'll move on to the next question. And one is, can the county post an informational post online about this proposal in simple language and explain it to the people who cannot attend the meeting and answer the questions? Again, the questions, you know, we're talking about them now. This is being filmed and this will be put up on the website. And you'll also be able to go to my blog if there's other questions when you get home tonight, or you have a neighbor that has a question, and we'll respond. And I know with the staff of Eric Gill in the communications department, along with the staff that's sitting up here, we'll get back to you. If you want something to be answered personally, my office is always here. Cindy, my aide, is here somewhere. There she is back here. For those of you that have called the office, you've all had the opportunity to speak with her. So again, you can go to the website and we will respond to the questions. So we're going to start with Barbara. We're going to let ladies go first. Is there something that you would like to share with them?
Good evening. I would like to clear up just to make sure we're going to get the feel of the room. We're going to try to reach out and get an idea of how many we have that may support looking into the MSBU further before we ballot. Once we go to the cost of balloting, we will have a rough cost estimate that will be very conservative for you to decide. And we don't always do that with MSBUs, but there's been so many numbers that have been thrown out that we will have a rough cost estimate, but that won't be until we see a lot of support from you guys that you do want it. Letters to Commissioner Townsend, things like that will help, that we know that we're not going through this and spending going into any kind of cost without support from the neighborhood.
Okay. The other thing that I want to say is, I know one of the other questions that came in was, is this mandatory? It's not mandatory. And again, this is why we're here. We're here to see if this is the will of the people. I can tell you that for the members I sit with, this is not something that I feel this current board would say we're going to do. And so I know that I've seen it out there. I've had calls come into the office on it as too. This is not a mandatory hookup. You are not getting utilities. This is the first of one in many meetings to determine if the will is there for you to move forward, because you do want it, and the decision is going to be yours. Okay, so we're going to get to questions in 1 second, but I want to go through really quick. Dawn, is there something you would like to add?
Well, yeah, Don West. And just from an engineer's perspective, I'll let the other gentlemen talk more about the water part of it, because that's really their business. But just to kind of reiterate what Barbara Gettler just said, one of the first things people always want to know about it in a project like this is, what is the cost? And that's one of the most difficult questions to answer. And the reason is, as an engineer, what we have to do, we have to actually lay out a conceptual plan for the project, where we actually lay the lines out, figure out how big they have to be. You have to go to a lot of detail, all the nuts and bolts, even to get a cost number. And the reason is, every project is very unique. Whether it be a water main project or a storm drainage project, it really doesn't matter. The only way to really get a reasonable cost is to actually lay it out on paper and more or less design it. in a preliminary manner and then count up all the nuts and bolts and pieces and assign the cost to each one and add it all up in detail. It's a very involved process to come up with a cost. That's why that's a question that's so difficult, to answer. You have to actually do preliminary engineering. So that's why we need to find out really if there's even interest in the project before we go spend all that money on doing all that preliminary design to determine the cost and so on. So I know that the one thing in your minds, is always, well, what is the cost? Tell me the cost so I know whether I want the project or not. But that's really a hard thing to answer. And so it involves expending funds, quite a bit of funds to actually determine that. That's why we approach it in this manner, where we want to find out if there's interest in it first before we spend taxpayer money on trying to figure out, all this preliminary design and so on. So,
Thank you.
uh-huh.
Another question that came in was, will the roads be tore up? Because there's some roads out there that have already been paved. There is easements between the pavement and the right-of-way and the swells, and that's where the utility lines will go in. So there would not be anything that would be tearing up the roads, and if it was to go from one side to the other, it would be bored underneath the road. So there would be no, I would hope, not a whole lot of inconvenience to you traveling up and down the roads. Okay, so Ray and Val, is there something that you would like to say before we?
I have one bit of interesting information. It's been told many times that the board up at Lakewood Park has been very opposed to the water project in the past. However, recently I have been contacted by the board up in Lakewood Park, and they are requesting water there at the community center.
Okay. Val, do you have anything like that? Okay. I would also like to recognize we do have one of the county engineers with us tonight also, Kim Graham's in the audience too. So, okay, so what we'll do at this time is we've kind of briefed you on some of the things. We're interested now in seeing some of the questions that you have. I know, again, we've kind of given you a lot of information, but I know there's questions that haven't been answered. So at this time, if somebody would like to come up to the microphone and ask a question, then we will start answering your questions, because I know we're not that wonderful that we gave you all the information you needed. Is there somebody that has questions?
Good evening. My question is, you're going to send out the ballots, right? Now, we have 3 areas in Lakewood Park that is not part of Lakewood Park. So if they voted yes against what we're voting, how are you going to work that around? Because you've got Sampson Division, you're going to have Ryan now, and then you have Bel Air.
Okay, so we will address that, but I want to address something before I give that to Barbara. I do want to say this. Up here on the screen, you'll see a map. And there are streets in Lakewood Park currently that when Holiday Pines went in, there was water brought forward going towards the fire station and the school. So some of the streets on the southern part of Lakewood Park currently have water. They've already paid to hook in, and they're already receiving it. They get a water bill. You are exempt from this. You already have it. You will not be a part of this. So you would only be sent a ballot to move you forward if you're interested in sewer. Okay? And if the sewage moves forward, you will only be assessed on the sewage part, which is another reason why it's divided. So there are areas currently in Lakewood Park and some of the streets that already have utilities. You will not be receiving the ballot for the water, nor will you be taxed on this. You will be exempt from this. So Barbara, would you like to answer a question?
Yes, ma'am. There are areas in Lakewood Park, as we know, Sampson Subdivision, a few others, that have water. If they already have water, as Commissioner Townsend said, they will not receive a ballot. They will not be part of the water process. Bel Air, if they don't have water, if they benefit from the system, they would be part of it. They would get a ballot just like anybody else, and if the assessment goes through, they would be paying just like everyone else. So it doesn't matter if the legal description says Lakewood Park. It matters if they benefit from the system that's going in. Those who already have water are not benefiting from the system that the MSBU is paying for.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Ma'am, did you have a question in the front row? Because come on up. You both can come on.
Well, one comment about the cost. I mean, it's going to be impossible for us to say, at least for me, to say if we're interested, if we don't know, have some kind of an idea of how much it's going to cost, 20,000, 50,000, 80,000. Some people down there seem to think it's going to be 80. I can't imagine that's true. So, at any rate, my question is about...
Let me just address that really quick.
Sure.
So again, because I stated this, but I know that there was a lot of information. This is the first process to see if there's an interest. If obviously those of you here tonight, the consensus of the room is you want to move forward. The first ballot that you will receive is, are you interested? At that point in time, if there's an interest and the ballots come back and there's an interest, then they move forward with getting the cost together. Once the cost is together, another ballot goes out, and then you're given the facts. You're given the facts. This is water, this is sewer. Are you interested in both? Check one, check this. Then that's when the vote happens for you to decide that. So we can't give you a cost because we don't know what the cost is. And so you're only voting to see if there's an interest to move forward and seeing what the cost would be to bring the utilities in.
I
Okay.
get that. I just think that I hope that you get that it's really hard to determine whether we're going to be interested if we have no idea what it's going to be.
I understand that, but I don't understand that, because the reason why I would disagree with you is, if, like, I'll use myself as an example. I was interested, but I want to know what the cost was. But I'm not going to know what the cost is unless I say, go ahead, move forward, figure it out, and come back and give me the price. At that point, I'll make a decision, and that's what happened. They came back, they gave me the price, knowing that others could not afford that. It was a no vote. So in order to move something forward, you have to be willing to get the information. And we will spend tax dollars to move forward to get this information for you. If the consensus of this room tonight is to not move forward, we cannot waste tax dollars to do something that we know is not going to happen, that there's no interest in.
Okay, I think we're at an impasse.
So-
But I do have another question, and that is about how long would this project take to complete? Do you have any idea about
Years.
that? Years?
It's not going to happen in a year. It would be probably at least, I would say, 2 years by the time the ballots went. It came back, there was an interest. The cost happened, the ballots went back out as there an interest, and then it comes back to staff. You would be probably looking in the neighborhood of about 2 years before it ever started. Am I correct?
Okay, but thank you for that. But I'm actually talking about when you guys start to dig up the swales and put pipes in and so on. How long is that going to take?
From the time it started to completion?
Yeah.
Right, Val?
I will be a little conservative on this, and I would assume that the entire project, if it moved forward, that all of the water distribution system throughout Lakewood Park, from start to finish, would take about 3 years.
Okay. One last question. Well, two, actually. You said that the water and the sewer would be separate proposals, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I got that right. And I have 2 lots. They're vacant lots. Hi. Excuse me. I can hardly hear myself think here. Okay. I have 2 lots, and right now they're sort of joined together at the property appraiser. But from what I'm reading from this, I actually have to get something called what is it? ERC.
Okay, so now let me ask you, you have the 2 lots adjoining. Did you do a unity of title?
I did not do a unity of title because I didn't feel like going to a lawyer and paying $1,000 for one. I went to the property appraiser's office, and I was assured by them that it would be treated as one property by joining them together. Now it is. It's a half acre with one address.
But in the legal world, it's still 2 separate IDs, 2 separate parcels, so it's 2 different tax bills that you receive because you've not done a unity of title to make them one. But Barbara can answer your question.
Because I really did only get one.
Okay.
Right,
thing
I
for
think
them.
she combined the properties.
Yeah.
So they're under one parcel ID, but there's still 2 lots in the legal description.
Uh-huh.
And how that's handled is, what we do is, we don't want to restrict your property. So if there could be another home, if you could split it and build 2 homes, what you will get in the mail is something from us that says, right now your maximum assessment would be 2 ERCs, 2 connections. If you don't want 2 connections because you don't want to pay the assessment twice, you can file a restricted covenant agreement stating that you only want 1 connection, And what that will do is that will restrict your property, that it'll always just be one big property. And, well, at this point anyway, you would only be assessed for one ERC. Then say later down the road, you wanted to split that parcel. If it's within the 20 years, we're still paying the loan back for the construction, you would have to pay into the MSBU for that second parcel before you could build on it. And that would also we'd have to determine at that time if there was capacity in the plant for that. Because when you restrict your property, if we have a lot of people who do it, the lines are going to be built based on what we need and what's reserved.
Okay, so what you're saying is even though I did join these at the property appraiser's office, I still have to get this ERC from you, I guess.
Right, and that is, I'm assuming that you do have enough room, that it's not a small lot, that
It's a half an
two-
acre.
Yes, right, then yes, if you didn't want to, then you would just fill out the forms for the restricted covenant agreement.
Okay, it's not going to cost me anything, right?
No,
Okay.
not to fill that form out,
Okay, thanks very much.
no problem.
Okay, do you want to explain to them, because I know they're shy to come up and be a movie star on TV. Can you explain to them what the ERC is?
An ERC is equivalent residential connection. That's normally each single-family residence is assigned one ERC. They call it equivalent residential connections because if it's a business, they may have 18 when a home has one, depending on what type of business it is and how much water they use. So an ERC is just how many connections you have going to your home.
Go to the microphone, sweetie.
I'm on conjoined lots is what they call it. I pay one tax bill. I have my house and then my garage is sitting on both lots. Now, do I have to get an ERC?
No, you would not need a restricted covenant agreement if it's a permanent structure on the other lot and there's not room for another home. And that's just by the standards from planning or how you're zoned. If you don't have any room, if you have another building on the other lot, an attached garage, anything like that, if it's a shed, it may be iffy. But anything permitted that's permanently there, then you would not need to file one. And you would be notified how many we see. Because there are some times that there's something there that we didn't see when we're looking at everything. And then you would call us and say, well, I have this permanent structure. We usually catch those, but we would definitely notify you so you know.
Yeah, because it's a 25 by 25 foot concrete block garage.
Mm-hmm.
So
That does not sound like it would be
straddles both
something.
lots.
Right, that doesn't sound like you would have room. So you would, most likely, we would just assign you one ERC and you would not have to fill out a restricted covenant agreement.
So they're not going to charge along, and I've got a lot of room on the sway. I mean, have a lot of frontage.
Right,
You're not going to go by pipes.
No.
How many pipes?
no, it's per connection.
Okay, just per connection. And my next question, Kathy, is you said it cost $26,000 for where you were. Why would it be any cheaper?
Because because where I am, I'm serviced by Fort Pierce Utilities Authority, which is extremely expensive.
I know the utilities.
Be grateful you're on county utilities. I would love to be where you are. I have Fort Pierce Utilities Electric even. I would love to have Florida Power and Light.
Yeah, no. I avoided.
Yes.
Getting the
It's
utility
very
bills.
expensive to be a part of the Fort Pierce Utilities.
So you
District.
think they're even for laying pipes more expensive?
Yes. I will tell you that I would be shocked if this comes in at that price. I don't see us being that high. Is there any other questions?
Okay, there's been a lot of talk on this neighborhood thing that we have. Okay, I want to understand about the mandatory, because someone said it wasn't mandatory. Okay, so we're going to be assessed, whether we hook up or not, we're going to be assessed, right? It's just not going to be mandatory to be hooked up?
Right. So what happens is if the majority votes that you want it, everybody will be assessed on their tax roll.
Okay,
Everybody will be assessed the taxes
okay.
into the MSBU, and it will be on your tax bill for 20 years. That's the direction it goes. You are not mandatory required to take the hookup from the road to your house. You do not have to do that. That is individualized on you. So if you have a working well and a working septic tank and you don't want to pay to bring it into your house, you don't have to do that. You do that when you're ready to do that. That's not a mandatory hookup. But if the ballots go out, the cost comes back, the people voted in, then that's mandatory. It's going to be put on your tax bill. But as far as the hookup from the road to your house, that's not mandatory. Nobody can make you do that.
And this is definitely St. Lucie Utilities.
It is St. Lucie
That's a-
County Utilities.
That's firm right there. I know you can't do cost, but it's absolutely St. Lucie
It
Utilities.
is St. Lucie County Utilities. This is
Okay.
the utility authority
Okay.
right here.
Well, I wouldn't want to say anything bad about Fort Pierce Utilities, but they are kind of pricey.
Well, I'm not afraid to put it out there. I think that they are.
And, okay, you're going to put it on the tax bill. If a person wants to just pay it, say it's $10,000 for your lot, and you just say, send me a bill, $10,000, you can do that, you're done with it, you don't pay any
You can do
interest.
that.
You can just do that and be done with it. You don't have to worry about it being on your tax
Correct.
bill.
You
Your
do
taxes stay the same.
You do not have to put this on your tax bill. If you have the funds and you want to pay it, you can. And the other thing is, correct me if I'm wrong, because it's on your tax bill. So say this couple here decides to go into it, they decide they want to retire and move to Hawaii. It is a part of their assessment on their tax bills. They can negotiate it at the time they sell their house. In the sale of the house, they have to disclose what's on there, and the new buyers can pick it up and it can continue to roll over, or they can negotiate it in the sale of their house and say, we'll go ahead and pay that off, and that's something that we will give to you because you're purchasing the house. Or it can be negotiated in the sale, and it rolls over with the property if you sell your home. It stays with the property. Am I correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And I have 3 lots. I have my house and 2 more lots. So I would be able to, I'm never going to build on those other 2 lots. I like not having any neighbors, really. So I'll be able to do something that puts them all together. I mean, it's not like I care whether they ever get sold or anything else. I can just put them all together as one chunk of property, and I'd only be at one assessment.
Well, I'm not a lawyer,
Okay.
but I did used to sell real estate.
Okay.
And so I'm not really sure I should be saying this, but I will let you know that you can do a unity of title. It combines them all as one. It makes one lot. However, if something happens and you decide to sell the property down the road, you have to divide that property back, and that is a lot more expensive to bring it back out of that. So you're better off to keep them single lots and just move forward with the process that Barbara was talking about earlier. A unity of title encumbers your property. If you always want it to be there as that and pass it on or sell it as one, that's one thing. But you're taking away some of the value of the property if you were to ever have a problem and want to sell off a lot because you need the income or something. So, and that's really probably more information than I should say because I'm not a
Well,
lawyer.
I bought all that property. I thought my daughter would build a house next to me. Now she's like, Mom, I don't want to build a house next to you. So
Yes.
That plan
Our
went.
wonderful children.
Pat, you know how my daughter is.
Yes.
And so do you, Lorraine.
Yeah, so if you get with Barbara, you call the office, she can also tell you about the process. So if you have 3 lots, it's something that you would want to talk to her about.
Okay.
Okay?
And time frame, 2 or 3 years. Okay, if you have, all right. If you have, say, your drain field goes bad during this time frame, I know that's a health department issue, but while they're putting in water lines with the health department, you think be giving you any problem about putting in a new drain field? Because you've got to have a septic and drain field while they're doing all this.
I would tell you, I would think, Ray could probably answer more to this. If we are in the process of laying the pipes and moving forward with utilities and you were to have a failed drain field, I would think that the health department would recognize that and work with you in containing it so there's no contaminants to be put out there in the environment, but they would give you the leeway in knowing that we're within a time frame of being able to be hooked in. They would work with you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Wait. No, come on. You're okay.
Okay, so you say that you'd actually have to decide to hook up or not. What is the cost of hooking? You'd have to hire a private plumber, an electrician? or-
Are you talking about the cost to take it from
Right.
once the utilities are into your house?
Yes.
Again, that's something that you would have to contact a plumber. I do believe, though, that it is somewhere in the neighborhood of about $3,000, isn't it? Whenever they call plumbers in.
The information I'm going to provide is for our most recent water MSBU being in the Indian River States subdivision. Most of those lots in there are quarter acre. It's been our experience that from the water meter box to the house, The average homeowner in there is paying anywhere from $150 to $300.
Okay, so see, I was wrong. I told you way more than it was. You just got a bonus tonight.
And the other thing is, what is the minimum, like, let's say we hook up for water. You're going to get a water bill.
Correct.
What's the average water bill? Is there a minimum?
I don't
maximum?
have, I don't have the utilities, but I will tell you that it's based on, there's a set gallon that's per month. If you don't exceed that, I think a basic water bill is what, $32? That's with sewer too. Yes, a basic water bill. Ray, what is it?
This information is based off of my personal account. In fact, I paid it today. There's my wife, myself, and my daughter living in the house, and my bill was exactly $40.
Okay, so $40.
Which leads me into the next question. What happens if there's a leak in the pipes that you lay down and we don't know about it, and now your thousands of gallons are pouring out? And
Okay, I can respond to that because that's happened to me. I have rental property that's with, in White City area, and it's with the FPUA, and that happened. And I got an $1,800 water bill. It was determined that it was at the road, and so they had to come make it right, and they had to pick it up. But when something's happening like that, that stuff is being monitored.
Okay.
And so when they see something that is happening like that, they are usually right there and they're on it.
I see.
A year later, it happened again, and it was in the concrete area of my kitchen. My renters didn't call me till a week later, and I had to then go in and pay that bill, and that was $822. So if it's from the property into your property, you are responsible because that's your land. If it's in the utilities, they are responsible for picking that up. Am I correct, Val?
Correct. Yeah, correct. Actually, we have meters now installed that are radio read meters. So we actually, when we collect the data, it'll let us know if there's a leak. It'll show it even intermittent, if it might be a toilet that might be hung up or something like that. So it'll kind of give us that information.
Do you let us know? You call
Yeah, of
us,
course.
or-
We want to conserve water.
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean, it's
sure.
not about making money, it's about conserving water. You know, we got to watch for our kids when they grow up to make sure there's plenty of water.
And I have one more question. I have a bunch of questions, but one more. What if you lose power? And, how will you?
That's the beauty of being on utilities. If you lose power, you always have water and you always have sewage.
Okay.
Yes.
'Cause right now
They're
I can-
generated
I can
and
flush my toilets
you'll
now.
always be able to flush if you lose your power.
How is that? How are you? Because
Well, because the plants are backed up by generators, so they never really go without the power.
Gotcha.
They always have power to utilize the system. So again, if you had solar for your lights and you had gas for your hot water heater and your cooking and you were on utilities, you would totally be able to be effective out there in the world if we were to lose power. So that's the beauty of being on utilities and having gas, actually.
thank you so much.
Any other questions? Okay. Okay, I was gonna say, because we can maybe bring the microphone to you. Eric, if we bring the microphone to this gentleman, will you be able to pick him up on TV? If we were to bring the mic, okay, thank you.
My name is Tom, and I live in Lakewood Park. Couple of these are questions, but other is one an experience when I was going to Michigan State nursing program. So I'll go with the questions first. One of my neighbors says, well, a couple of them have corner lots. So let's say artificial number of $3,000 to run the pipe across the front. So around the side, they were looking at, say, $6,000. So are they going to be doubled up because they live on a corner? That's what they were concerned about. There's more than a few have asked me to mention that.
And that's a good question, if you
Yeah.
have a corner lot. So Barbara?
No, the assessment cost is based on the number of connections to your home. It's not how far the line has to go to get around the neighborhood. If it
Okay.
was roadway, sometimes it's done that way, but not with potable water.
All right.
They would have, if they had one residence there, they would have one connection.
Okay, thank you. The other one was that back in Michigan, there was a couple of things that happened, and one is a friend had 2 lots plus theirs, so 3 lots, like a couple before me mentioned. And what they did is in the pipes there, they figured in the future there may be connections. They may sell the property, and they already have the the T coming off for that piece where it's capped off. So that way there, if they did sell the property in future, you're not tearing it apart and, you just connect up. But we did, now this is probably not, I'll be honest, this is probably not good for what we're talking about today. But what we did was we had, my buddy and I went to the county in the East Lansing there, got the permit, and we dug our own line from the house all the way down to the road, put in the box and that, and then our charge up was just on the connection, and they live about 150 feet off the line, so we just had the water potable, everything was already permitted, and we had to be below the frost line. So anyways, what I was trying to say is that for some people, they can save by doing that, and then you just pay from the box that has already been certified and with a tag on it for them to hook it up direct. So, and that's future stuff that hasn't come up, but we're just kind of concerning, because people ask me, can we do that too? So I'm speaking more than just for myself.
Okay, so I'm going to say that I know that there was a lot of conversation out there when he said that. You do not have to hire a plumber. You can hook it up yourself. Am I correct? So that is something that I was going to end with whenever we got done by letting you know that the plumber is not somebody you have to hire. If you're a handyman, as most men are, you can go to Home Depot and you can get the stuff you need and you can actually bring it to your home on your own. How are you?
Good. This is to Mrs. Getler. Years ago, I actually traveled to Tallahassee, and this was right after the financial downturn. Oh.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you to make sure you speak into the mic because they are filming this.
Oh, okay. I went to Tallahassee and talked with DEP, and they actually knew about Lakewood Park, and they were willing to give engineering grants of $1.5 million and low interest loans at 3%. Is any of that available anymore?
I'm not aware of that at all. I will defer to Don West. He may have more background if that was the case. I've been in this department for 15 years, and Lakewood Park has always been brought up. We have never been able to secure a grant for potable water. That doesn't mean we never will. We will always look for them and try, but we will definitely look into what you're suggesting.
Okay. Thank you.
Don?
And I'm really not aware of any grant programs, direct grant programs. There are loan programs that the state offers. There's a state revolving loan fund. It's a low interest loan, but typically we can borrow money at usually rates that are equal or lower to the state revolving loan fund. So it is available out there if cities or counties need to use it. But generally, we can usually match that just through our own, local loan programs.
Back then, when the downturn was, they were actually looking to give it away. It was
Right.
Yeah, they were.
It's different now.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. And there was also through the Department of Economics, there is a grant that is available, but it's also, a lot of people are familiar with that grant, and it's a grant that's for cities, not counties. And so because you're in the unincorporated county, we're a county, we don't follow under the Department of Economics for the CDBG grant, because it is something that I actually inquired on to see if we would qualify for that to get you the funding to offset cost. And it's just for the cities only, it's not for the county. So I did look into that. I actually had conversation with Barbara again tonight about that to see if there was anything else we could look at. I will say though that because of everything going on right now with the water and the red tide and everything, up in Tallahassee and Washington, there is more interest of finding grants to remove people from septic. They are trying to get the dense areas that they can go from the septic to sewer, and they are trying to find funds for that. There's just not any available right now, but it is something that's being discussed up there. I do know that for a fact. Is there any other questions? Mr. Jensen?
Good evening, Commissioner, and everybody on the panel. Couple questions. Seems to be a water MSBU, but there's hint of sewer. If sewer was to get added in, what plant will they use? Or do we have to fund a new water treatment plant?
No.
That's a very good question. We would have the option of one of two treatment plant locations. One being the existing Holiday Pines wastewater treatment plant, in which we will be expanding by 300,000 gallons very shortly. Another is we also have an interconnect with the Fort Pierce Utility Authority, who has a 10 million gallon a day plant there on South Hutchinson Island.
So on South Beach,
That's
North
correct.
Beach, or Holiday Pines, which is in rough shape now, so I guess doing an upgrade on that would be necessary to add 3,000 more homes?
It would be, an expansion would be required to take that type of flow.
And who would fund that portion?
The county's moving forward with the 300,000 gallon a day expansion. The utility department is doing that. Water for that many units, we estimate to be 1 million gallons a day. 80% of that, 800,000 gallons, we would estimate in being discharged through Lakewood Park. So additional expansions or additional treatment capacity would have to be reserved in either one of those plants, Holiday Pines or the Lakewood or the Fort Pierce Utility Authority existing water reclamation facility.
Okay, so you're going to expand it to 300,000, but there's going to be 1 million produced, and where does the other 800,000 go?
Well, we have an existing plant at Holiday Pines, which is 300,000 gallons a day. We're going to expand that to 600,000 gallons a day. That will not be adequate for discharge coming from Lakewood Park should sewer be approved. So we would have to look at an additional expansion, an additional plant, or additional capacity reserved through the Fort Pierce Utility Authority plan.
And all that would be done cost-wise other than this MSBU, correct?
If the MSBU goes through, connection fees would be paid as part of that. Part of the connection fees paid to the county utilities goes for capacity, treatment capacity in a plant.
Okay, well, nobody's told us. They said that the cost of the MSBU is what it would cost to get the lines, but you couldn't get any service. The hookup is somewhat, I say pricey, several hundred up, and that would go towards a plant expansion?
That would go for reservation of capacity
What's the
within.
normal hookups fees? On
Say
top
that-
of, on top of the line cost, what are the normal hookup fees?
If there was an existing sewer line in front of wastewater treatment or wastewater line in front of your home today, you would be able to connect to that for $4,300.
Okay, so that extra if sewer was added to this, there would be an additional 4,300 to attach.
No, that would be, again, that if there was already an existing wastewater line in front of your home, and you were to connect to that, you would be paying $4,300 for that connection.
Okay, there's no existing sewer lines other than a few in Lakewood Park.
That's correct.
So if we do the MSBU, there'll be no hookup fee?
The connection fee would be rolled into whatever the line would cost to put throughout Lakewood Park.
Okay, so they would be combined if
Yes.
in the event sewer was added to it.
In that event, yes.
Okay. The second question lies in, I believe it's the third or fourth paragraph about fire protection. I don't know if anybody in here knows it, but you should be getting the maximum discount from your insurer by being in St. Lucie County. St. Lucie County became a level 9 after Port St. Lucie fires. I went to fire prevention. They give you a form that says they can give the top service to any house in the county. And with that, State Farm had automatically given us a discount. That's without a fire hydrant. That's with all the tankers that have went into the budget of the fire department. Second question is, a fire hydrant every 500 feet doesn't seem cost effective. Yeah, but we have top level here. After the fires in Port St. Lucie, we bought tankers.
Mr. Ellis, I can't have this conversation. It has to be on the microphone.
Background, St. Lucie County has put a tanker truck at every fire station. They've bought 2 large tankers for Central. In the event the engine's water only lasts 10 minutes, the tanker's water lasts 30 minutes. They then respond the large tankers, and they can go on like that nonstop without a fire hydrant. We did this 10 years ago with the form is available at Fire Prevention on Milner. Is it required to have a fire hydrant every 500 feet? When
Actually,
you're a level 9, when you're a
yeah.
level 9 fire department.
Actually, any water distribution system that is designed would follow the fire department's requirement for location of fire hydrants. And in a residential area, that is a maximum distance of 600 feet.
600 feet.
That's correct.
And that's a Florida state code for the fire
Okay,
districts.
because we pay a lot of money for the ability now.
Yes, we do.
We pay a lot of money for extra equipment.
But that's just a little bit more information for y'all too. And the reason why Mr. Jensen knows a lot of this is he is somebody that volunteers his services and sits on the Value Adjustment Board of St. Lucie County. So he stays up on a lot of these. So for those of you, what he's referring to is if you have not had conversations recently, my aide is also a prior 40-year seasoned insurance agent. St. Lucie County, whenever we stepped up to that level, your rates of your homeowner's insurance was supposed to go down. If they didn't, you need to have conversations with your
Right, well,
agent.
this form implies that you will get a discount.
Right.
The discount's been there for 10 years.
But people weren't aware of that.
Well, most of the bigger insurance companies pick that up from the zip codes.
Right. So that's just a little bit of information to just kind of.
They may want to add that form in to the ballots so they know, because there's nobody here
Inquire with
representing the
your
fire department
insurance agent.
tonight, correct? Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else?
My name is Jaleesa. I live in Lakewood Park. I know earlier we talked about just having an idea of the costs, and you guys just finished up Indian River Estates. And there, I think, a similar sized neighborhood, maybe about 2,500 homes, 3,000 homes. So how much did that cost?
If I may, Indian River Estates was actually, the assessments were levied in 2007, so it's been a while.
Okay, so they
Their cost came in, their rough cost came in at 7,400, and once construction was done, we were able to lower it to 5,900. So those people who prepaid got a refund, and those people who were on the tax roll, their assessments were adjusted based on that lower amount.
Okay. I think that helps because it's like people have been throwing out these wild amounts,
And so
I have no clue how much that stuff costs. So.
Right. And no, that's good information. That was a good question to ask. So for those of you, what was just stated is the cost at the end actually came in $2,000 less than what was quoted going into this. So they actually had a savings. If you prepaid, like the one lady inquired about, the homeowners were refunded their money. Did you have another question?
Probably be better to just put it on your tax roll because you're out $2,000 that they didn't earn interest on or anything like that. Just an afterthought. I had another question. So why are we having to pay for the lines to begin with? I mean, when San Lucie County Utilities formed and they started having public water, has every neighborhood ever had to pay that is service?
Every neighborhood has to pay, and if you're, so for example, we'll use the property going in currently that's going to be developed at 95 on the south side, okay? That's undeveloped property, there are no utilities. The property on the east, on the north and the south side of Endrio Road, there were not utilities. A developer has been in, they have had conversations with us, and they're getting ready to develop that corner of 95.
Okay.
In order for them to develop, they have to take the utilities. That's now required in some of the areas that the utilities can go to. And if you're within, or there's urban service boundaries, and that's more than y'all even care to know about. So anyways, in order for that development to be approved, one of the first things he had to do is he had to pay to take the utilities to his development, and he has to run them, and those homes have to be hooked up.
Okay. That was.
That's a requirement anymore with development whenever you're within high density areas. The only reason it wouldn't be determined and required is if you are out on Trowbridge Road and you're in rural areas of farmland and stuff, then it's not, the utilities don't go that far. The utilities, there's boundaries where utilities go up to, and slowly people do start to go outside that boundary. And that's when utilities do start to move further to the west. But if you're within that boundary and you want to develop, unless you're in an area like Lakewood Park, if you sold me your lot, I still have the right to go in and pull a building permit to pull my house, and I can still be septic and sewer. And I can, you know, have a pump and a well and anything I want. It's not required because that area is set up for that. However, 10 years from now, if it goes to utilities and I want to go in there, it won't be an option. I will have to be a part and go into the utilities. Am I correct? Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
I just don't want to give bad information. So correct me when I'm wrong.
My last question was, you talked about sending out a ballot if we're interested tonight. So if everyone here is kind of like, no, at the end, are you just dropping it from here? Are you not going to even ask everybody else in the neighborhood that's not here tonight, or?
Well, this was the beginning for us to see what kind of a turnout happened. I know that there's going to be a lot of people that are going to go and watch it because they've called the office and said they couldn't attend. And so my goal tonight was to see those of you in the room, if you wanted to move forward with possibly going into the cost factors of it. I'm going to wait and see how many people email the office and call the office. Okay. And if the consensus is that there is enough of you that want to move forward, then it's something to be discussed with the engineering department and Barbara and the board. And the board will make the decision if we're going to move to that next step.
Okay. I would like water, please.
Okay, his question is the people that do not live here year-round and they have summer homes, they own property in Lakewood Park, they will still get a ballot, and it's sent to them at their northern address. Everybody that owns a property gets the ballot. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, everything leads to another question. All right, this gentleman's talking about where the sewer lines go. And so we're talking about St. Lucie Utilities for the water. But then if we can't use St. Lucie Utilities for the water, for the sewer, then that's got to go to Fort Pierce Utilities. So are you going to get two bills, one for your water and one for your sewer?
No, so I was waiting for somebody to come up with that question with Mr. Jensen bringing that up. And I was also waiting for a question to come up and say, so you just said that Fort Pierce Utilities was more money. The county has interlocal agreements with Fort Pierce Utilities, and we obviously can purchase their services cheaper than we can as individuals. And so when we move into boundaries and areas that we do have to utilize those services, there are negotiated prices to be able to keep our prices at the level that we have, and that's passed on to you. So we, like he stated, we do have I want to confirm also with following up with Mr. Jensen, the Holiday Pines is something that's already been approved, and we are already moving forward with increasing that station out there anyways. That's something that's going to happen irregardless. So, so I think your question is, if FPUA is more money and then we have to buy services from them, how is that going to affect you? So your fees would still be less going through us than it would if you went directly to the FPUA.
And which is going to come first, water or sewer? Water will come first and then sewer down the line. You're smiling up there. We can't put it all together.
Yeah.
Chicken or egg,
Yeah,
right?
I've been here at the county for 25 years, and we have discussed water through Lakewood Park extensively. However, the discussion about wastewater through Lakewood Park has only been mentioned in passing. So it hasn't been anything that has been fully vetted on the staff level. Okay. So we would be ready to hit the ground running with the water. We have an engineer with us tonight who has taken it upon himself years ago to do a preliminary water distribution system design within Lakewood Park. So we do have that. It wasn't right down brass tacks, so that we didn't put in the driveways and the road crossings, but we have an idea of what size pipes we would need to put in. We would have to refine that a little bit, but we are much farther ahead with a water distribution system than we would be with a wastewater collection system.
Okay, so time frame for the water would be what? 2 years, 3 years, and then
Well,
wastewater more
again,
out?
I've given from start to finish 3 years. Now, when I say 3 years, I would envision that we would start in one location, start getting all the lines in, finish that up, provide service, move on to the next one, so we wouldn't have the entire Lakewood Park subdivision tore up. But we would work, get the lines in a section, get that cleared through the FDEP for service, move on to the next one, have another crew come behind us on that first section to do the restoration, and move along that way, kind of an assembly line type of situation. So from start to finish, I would assume it would be about 3 years.
So wouldn't it be more cost efficient to do water and sewer at the same time? So you're not digging up lines for water and then digging up lines for sewer? I mean, you're not going to use the same line, but wouldn't it be more cost efficient to do the lines at the same time?
It could be.
It's usually not, because there has to be the separation
Sure.
between the two. So a lot of times one's on one side of the road, the other's on the other side of the road. And sewer, the cost for wastewater comes in usually much higher than water. So we usually have a lot more support for water. If we're worried about wells being contaminated, then we have to get rid of one of them. Water is usually more affordable. So in most of our neighborhoods, we've moved forward with water quicker as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, the only thing that you would really save on doing both at the same time would be mobilization, demobilization, which isn't a large chunk of the budget, but you also have the logistics nightmare of keeping water line storage and wastewater line storage and keeping those two separate, and you'd have to have twice the storage area. It certainly could be done. It's logistically a little more challenging, but it certainly could be done. But the cost savings wouldn't be large, I don't believe.
And I think you said that corner lots are not, I also have a corner lot.
It's just one.
It's just one lot?
It's per
Okay,
home
okay,
hookup.
that's good, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Okay, so we're just going to do a consensus of the room. So, Jason?
I live in the Sampson subdivision, and our water for our little community, we have county water and county sewer, comes right out of the ground, and it is terrible. My question is, where are the people of Lakewood Park going to get their water from? Are you going to do bulk water buys from the Fort Pierce Utilities Authority to give them fresh water?
If the water MSBU were to move forward for Lakewood Park, I would envision that the water served through that subdivision would be through the Lakewood Park water treatment plant.
Which means...
Oh, I'm sorry, the Holiday Pines water treatment plant.
So does Holiday Pines get their water right from their location? You don't buy water from Fort Pierce Utilities Authority?
We do not. We have our own supply wells.
Will our water quality where I live, will that improve from this if Lakewood Park gets water? Will we be switched over?
Should this project move forward, as you know, the Sampson subdivision HEW water treatment plant is right there in the corner of Fort Pierce Boulevard. We would consider or encourage that the water line along Fort Pierce Boulevard be sized in such a manner that we would be able to decommission the water treatment plant there at the HEW site.
I have friends that live in Holiday Pines, and they have no complaints about their water. When I moved into the Sampson subdivision, the water was really bad, and improvements have been made. I have to give the county credit. It comes out clear now. It's clean. We do have some problems, though, with the chlorine in it. Sometimes it's heavily chlorinated. Will the water that Lakewood Park receives, will that be computerized chlorinated? How is that going to be handled?
The system that serves HEW, Sampson subdivision, is a free chlorine system. The disinfectant that we use at Holiday Pines is a chloramine system. So it would not be that free chlorine that you experience.
Thank you.
Okay. So from a show of hands in the room, if everybody that would like to move forward and send out ballots to see if there's a consensus to move forward with the water, would you hold up your hand? You're allowed to. You're good. Okay, and by a show of hands, how many in the room do not have an interest? Okay. So staff has the visual, and we will wait to see who emails the office and how many phone calls I get, who responds to the website. Again, it's always a pleasure to see you. I can't do my job alone. I depend on you to bring back information and to help me make decisions because this affects you personally. It doesn't affect me. I don't live in Lakewood Park. So I'm always grateful when you take the time out of your schedule to come to these meetings with me because that's how we together can collaboratively make decisions. So hopefully those of you that are starving, you can go get you a nice meal, and y'all have a great evening, and thanks for being here. And if you have questions, my card is on the dais as you leave. Thank you.